Greetings, YouTube. America is fat. This should come as no surprise to anyone. 2/3 of all Americans and minors, those under 18, are obese. And that's a crying shame. Obesity levels are rising pretty much everywhere. Only one U.S. state has an obesity level below 20%, and that's 19 point something, and that's Colorado. I'm happy to say that the state I live in is 33rd out of 50, so at least we're not in the top 10. But 20 years ago, no state had an obesity level above 15. So in the last 20 years, obesity levels have skyrocketed. And you're saying, well, why have obesity levels skyrocketed? Well, because for the most part, it's what we eat. We eat a lot of really, really crappy food in America. And a lot of the food we eat in America is processed food. Highly, highly processed food. Food that is as close to not being food as you can get. And processed food tends to be bad for us. It tends to be loaded with sugars and fats and salt. Now, there's a reason it's loaded with sugars and fats and salts. Because that is what our taste buds and our bodies want. We want sugars and salty and foods and fats. We crave them because in nature, out there in the wild, sugary, fatty, salty things are rare. So if you could find them, you ate them, and you ate as much as you could of them, because that can be the difference between life and death. But today, they're everywhere. But we still crave them. So we eat as much as we can lay our hands on, or shove into our maws. And the result is that 2/3 of Americans are obese. And this is driving up healthcare costs. This is shortening lifespans. This is ruining lives. This is crippling people psychologically. Now, I've wrestled with my weight. At my peak, I was 230 pounds. I'm 5'8". That's morbidly obese. At the moment, I am at 163. My lowest I have hit was 155. And I was up to 170 about 3 weeks ago. This whole fiasco with house hunting just blew my stress levels out the roof. I have never been so stressed in my entire life, ever. That includes a car accident that broke 4 of my ribs and a house fire that killed someone. The stress levels right now are higher. And my reaction to this was my exercise routine went out the window, and I was starting to snack all the time. And I realized how bad that is. So about 3 weeks ago, I stopped. I went back to my regular exercise schedule as best I can, because my schedule is still topsy-turvy with the whole house hunting process. But I cut out snacks. Literally, I don't have any in the house. I realized that the diet that my dietitian and I have come up with, she and I have come up with, is enough to keep me going. I don't need to snack. I am not in desperate need of calories. The food I am taking in at my meals, and I eat 4 times a day for the most part, is enough to keep me functioning. I don't need to constantly be chewing. That's helped. In the last 3 weeks, I've lost 7 pounds, and I'm going to keep working on it. My numbers are still good. My glucose is still solid. My A1C is still low. My cholesterol is 95. So it works. And it can work for Americans. You just have to stop eating processed foods. But one of the problems with that is that the cheapest foods in America are processed. So healthy foods are more expensive than processed food, which makes no sense to me. Which makes no sense to most people, because most healthy food is unprocessed. So it's raw fruits, raw vegetables, uncooked meat. And yet, you spend effort and time to process all of these things into a substance that is salty, fatty, and sugary, which should drive the cost up in my head because you're adding work to it, and yet it costs less because they're doing it on a huge industrial scale. It's bad for us, and we need to stop doing it. And other people are probably going to talk about high fructose corn syrup. Now, when you're replacing normal sugars with corn syrup, I don't have a problem. If it's a sugar for sugar swap, yes, our bodies do react slightly differently. But the sugar for sugar swap, I don't have a problem with it. Some people prefer sugar. I get it. Fine, I can't have this stuff anyway, so I avoid it. The problem is that we're sticking corn syrup into foods that never had sugar in them to begin with because we want them, and that the marketers know we want them. So they're sticking them into foods that didn't ever have them, so that they will appeal to an audience, drive up sales, and turn us into fatties. And it's killing us. And we need to do something about it. So, I know that there are people on my channel that have wrestled with weight. My wrestling is not over with it. I will be dealing with my weight issues forever. They're easier now that I have a diet where it has no processed food in it. But it's still possible, even with my diet and my exercise, to snack and eat things I don't need and to gain weight. Stress is a sneaky bastard, and you gotta watch out for it. So, I implore anybody who has a weight problem, go to your doctor, talk to a dietitian, get a decent, healthy diet as much as you can afford, work as hard as you can to eat foods that are going to reduce the amount of carbs you're going to be taking in, and reduce your sugar and your salt and your fat intake as much as possible. You can do it. We need to reverse this trend, because if we don't, we are literally going to be paying for this in dollars and in lives forever.